Never react, never explain, always control. Machiavelli's 7 dark psychology tactics. Every time you lose your temper, explain yourself, or fight back against someone who wronged you, you are voluntarily handing them the remote control to your mind. You think you are defending your honor. You think you are standing up for yourself. But you are falling directly into a psychological trap. Society has programmed you to believe that silence is weakness, that restraint is surrender, and that every disrespect demands an immediate reaction. That programming is the exact reason you feel emotionally drained, constantly misunderstood, and completely powerless. The true power players of this world operate on a completely different frequency. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli documented a profound truth about human nature. Real power is never loud, reactive, or desperate to be understood. He realized that explaining yourself is a subconscious plea for validation. He saw that reacting is a public confession that an enemy owns your emotional state. To truly dominate, you must master the art of absolute self-containment. Today, we strip away the illusion of reaction. In the next few minutes, I am going to hand you 7 dark psychology tactics refined from Machiavelli's most ruthless teachings. You will learn how to neutralize manipulators without speaking a single word. You will discover how to command immediate respect through strategic silence. And you will master the secret to becoming completely untouchable to anyone trying to pull your strings. This is not about becoming cold. This is about reclaiming your total interpersonal sovereignty. Before we unlock the first tactic, I want you to lock in your commitment to this transformation. Drop the affirmation "I am in control" in the comments right now. Let's begin. Number 1. The attention currency protocol. Let us begin with the most foundational law of interpersonal sovereignty. You have been lied to your entire life about what your most valuable asset truly is. They told you it was your time. They told you it was your money. They were wrong. Your most scarce, non-renewable, and fiercely targeted resource is your cognitive attention. Every single moment of your day, people are actively competing to rob you of it. And the tragedy is that most people give it away for free. I want you to start viewing your attention as an elite, high-value currency. Imagine waking up every morning with a vault containing a strict, limited amount of golden coins representing your mental energy, focus, and emotional bandwidth. Now, ask yourself, would you walk down the street throwing handfuls of that gold at every stray dog that barked at your heels? Would you open your vault and hand stacks of your wealth to someone who actively despises you just because they insulted your appearance or questioned your intelligence? Of course not. That would be financial madness. Yet, emotionally and psychologically, that is precisely what you do every single day. Every time you read a passive-aggressive text and allow your heart rate to spike, you are paying out your currency. Every time a toxic coworker makes a snide remark, and you spend the next 2 hours crafting imaginary arguments in your shower, you are hemorrhaging your wealth. Every time you engage in a pointless comment war with a stranger determined to misunderstand you, you are voluntarily bankrupting your own mind. You are taking your pure, life-giving energy and financing the egos of people who do not even deserve to exist in your reality. Why do we feel this relentless need to respond to every provocation, correct every lie, and acknowledge every slight? It is because average people operate under a lethal delusion. They believe that by responding, they are reclaiming their dignity. They believe that if they leave an insult unanswered, the other person wins. They think getting the last word is the definition of power. But Machiavelli understood a darker, more fundamental truth about human psychology. The person who demands your attention is always the beggar, and the moment you pay them, you become their slave. When someone provokes you, they are not trying to have a genuine conversation. They are throwing a psychological hook. They are testing your boundaries to see if you can be controlled. The moment you bite, the moment you get angry, the moment you begin to justify your actions, they reel you in. They have successfully bypassed your rational mind and hijacked your nervous system. You must realize that to a toxic person or a manipulator, your negative reaction is just as delicious as your positive praise. They do not care if you are shouting at them or smiling at them. All they care about is forcing you to spend your irreplaceable cognitive currency on them. They are emotional parasites, and your attention is the blood they drink to stay alive. When you argue with them, you are not defeating them. You are feeding them. You are giving them the exact importance they desperately crave. while draining yourself of the energy you need to build your own life, your own empire, and your own peace. This brings us to the first Machiavellian tactical shift: absolute attention gatekeeping. The true power players, the untouchable individuals who command rooms without uttering a syllable, never allow themselves to be baited into emotional bankruptcy. They view their attention with a cold, aristocratic exclusivity. They understand that by withholding attention, they wield the ultimate psychological weapon: ego starvation. When someone tries to provoke a master of this protocol, they are met with a terrifying, unshakable indifference. No anger, no annoyance, no defensive chatter, nothing. Understand what this does to a provocateur's brain. Humans are deeply social creatures wired for acknowledgement. Even a negative reaction validates their existence. When you look at someone trying to insult you, or read a message designed to ruin your day, and choose to treat it with complete, silent irrelevance, you trigger a deep, subconscious panic within them. You are silently communicating. You are so beneath my threshold of value that your words do not even register as noise. You do not cost a single coin of my attention. By denying them that transaction, you reverse the power dynamic instantly. They wanted to make you feel small, but by refusing to pay them your attention, you make them invisible. You trap them in the void of their own malice, leaving them to choke on the toxic energy they tried to dump into your lap. While they sit stewing in frustration, wondering why their strings failed to make the puppet dance, you are already walking away, your cognitive account untouched, your peace entirely undisturbed. To master this tactic and build an impenetrable fortress around your mind, you must implement the 3-second filter protocol. Starting today, whenever you are baited, insulted, challenged, or dragged toward unnecessary drama, you are forbidden from reacting instantly. You must insert a mandatory 3-second pause between the stimulus and your response. In those critical seconds, you will not dwell on the unfairness of the insult or how sharp your comeback could be. You will ask your analytical mind one cold, economic question. Does this interaction yield a tangible, positive return on my energy? That is the only question that matters. Look at the person standing before you. Look at the glowing screen in your hand. Look at the situation demanding your engagement. Ask yourself, if I invest my finite mental currency here, what do I gain? Does this advance my purpose? Does this increase my peace? Does this build my future? If the answer is no, if the interaction is merely a trap designed to drain your emotional reserves, you must immediately shut the vault. You close the gate. You drop the interaction completely and without mercy. You do not explain why you are not engaging. You do not announce that you are taking the high road. Announcing your non-reaction is still a reaction. It is still paying the tax. You simply withdraw your attention as if the person has ceased to exist in the physical universe. You turn your head, you lock your phone, you redirect your focus toward your own ambitions, and you let them scream into the vacuum. This is not arrogance. This is supreme emotional self-defense. This is recognizing that your life is far too short, and your destiny is far too important to let low-vibration individuals treat your mind like an emotional dumping ground. When you control where your attention goes, you control your reality. You become immune to petty games because you simply refuse to sit at their table. From this second forward, your attention is no longer a free giveaway. It is an exclusive, high-cost privilege, and very few people on this earth can afford the price of admission. Guard your gate. Starve the parasites. Retain your currency. I want you to anchor this law into your nervous system right now. Go to the comments and type the affirmation. My attention is earned. Speak it into your reality. Commit to the protocol. And prepare yourself. Because what comes next is the most aggressive weapon in your entire psychological arsenal. Number 2. The aggressive power of strategic silence. Now that you have learned to gatekeep your attention, you must master the primary instrument of interpersonal dominance, your voice, or more accurately, the deliberate, tactical withholding of it. Why are the masses so terrified of silence? Because society has brainwashed you into believing that if you do not instantly respond to an attack, if you do not fiercely defend your reputation, if you do not secure the last word in a heated confrontation, then you have somehow surrendered. You have been conditioned to view silence as passivity, as weakness, as a public admission of guilt or defeat. You feel an overwhelming physiological urge to open your mouth, to explain your side, to correct their narrative, to fight fire with fire. That urge is nothing more than your ego crying out for validation, and obeying that urge is precisely how you lose the game before it even truly begins. Here is the truth that will permanently alter how you navigate social warfare. Silence is not a passive retreat. It is the most aggressive, confrontational, and dominant psychological move you can make on the human chessboard. Think about the mechanics of an argument. When a predator, a rival, or a toxic manipulator launches a verbal attack against you, what are they actually doing? They are extending an invitation to their arena. They have set the rules of engagement. They want a loud, messy, emotional spectacle because they thrive in chaos. The moment you fire back with your own words, you have accepted their invitation. You have stepped into their cage. You are now playing by their rules, and you have validated their disrespect by treating it as worthy of a response. But when you meet their aggression with absolute, unshakable silence, you completely shatter the rules of engagement. You flip the chessboard. You refuse to validate their attack, and in doing so, you assert an overwhelming, chilling superiority. You communicate without a single sound that their words carry zero weight in your reality, and that indifference cuts deeper than any screamed insult ever could. To understand why this destroys people so thoroughly, you must understand the psychological phenomenon known as the vacuum effect. In physics, every force requires resistance to generate impact. When you throw a punch into a brick wall, the wall pushes back with equal force, producing a collision. But what happens when you throw all your weight into a punch, expecting to hit solid rock, and instead you hit absolute emptiness? You lose your balance. You overextend. You stumble forward and fall on your face. This is the exact neurobiological reality of strategic silence. When an aggressor tries to provoke you, their nervous system is braced for impact. They are expecting your anger, your tears, your defensiveness, or your counterattack. They need that resistance to fuel their momentum. When you offer zero words in return, when you simply look at them with calm, unblinking composure, you create a psychological vacuum. Their aggression finds nothing to push against. Robbed of their anticipated collision, their own negative energy has nowhere to go, except directly back into their own psyche. In that suffocating void of your silence, they suddenly feel brutally exposed. They hear the echo of their own harsh words hanging in the air. They feel foolish. They feel self-conscious. They realize they are performing a one-person play to an audience that refuses to applaud. And that realization triggers a profound internal embarrassment that erodes their confidence in real time. Furthermore, Machiavelli recognized a critical strategic vulnerability that most men never grasp. The more you talk, the more ammunition you hand over to your enemies. Every time you open your mouth to defend yourself, you are broadcasting vital intelligence about your inner world. Your words reveal what hurts you. Your explanations reveal what you fear. Your justifications reveal the boundaries you are desperate to protect. To a skilled manipulator, your defensive chatter is an open treasure chest of data that they will meticulously weaponize against you in the future. They will twist your logic, exploit your admissions, and use your own emotional investments to construct a trap. Strategic silence is information starvation. When you say nothing, you leave your adversary completely blind. They cannot twist words you never spoke. They cannot exploit emotions you never displayed. They cannot find a weak spot in a fortress that offers no windows and no doors. By locking away your speech, you preserve your mystery, and mystery is an essential component of untouchable power. People fear what they cannot read, and they respect what they cannot predict. When you wrap yourself in silence, you become an enigma that causes even your most arrogant rivals to second-guess their own strategies. Now let us look at how to deploy this weapon in your daily life. When someone challenges your authority, disrespects your boundaries, or asks an invasive question designed to put you on the defensive, you must replace your reflex to speak with unblinking, comfortable restraint. If you are in person, hold their gaze without smiling, without frowning, without shifting your weight. Let your face become a calm, unreadable mask. Let 3, 4, even 5 seconds of heavy silence stretch between you. Do not look away to break the tension. Let the tension build until it becomes physically unbearable for them. Watch what happens next. In almost every case, the other person will crack under the crushing weight of that pause. Because human beings despise social awkwardness, Their anxiety will force them to fill the void. They will start talking again. They will stutter. They will backtrack. They will dilute their original insult. Or they will begin over-explaining themselves in a desperate attempt to diffuse the tension you created, doing absolutely nothing. If the interaction happens digitally, over a text, an email, or a public comment, the protocol is even simpler. Absolute digital silence. You do not send a witty comeback. You do not leave a thumbs-down emoji. You let their message sit there, unacknowledged, like an unanswered prayer to a deity that does not care. They will stare at their screen for days, agonizing over whether you saw it, what you thought, and why they could not break your peace. Silence is not surrender. Silence is absolute control. It is the realization that you never need to secure the last word when you own the entire conversation. From this moment forward, when the world demands your justification, let them drown in your stillness. When your enemies expect an explosion, give them the freezing void of space. I want you to solidify this tactical shift right now. Scroll down to the comments and declare your new operational standard by typing the affirmation, "Silence is my weapon." Commit to the restraint, command the room without a sound, and prepare yourself for the third tactical maneuver, where we learn how to make your physical presence the most sought-after commodity in any room. Number 3. Calculated unpredictability and withdrawal. You have locked down your attention. You have weaponized your silence. Now, you must elevate your psychological mastery by taking absolute control of the very space you occupy in other people's lives. Most amateur strategists make a catastrophic mistake when they first learn about the dynamics of power. When they hear the word withdrawal, they immediately visualize complete isolation. They believe the secret to dominance is cutting everyone off, deleting their digital profiles, locking themselves in a dark room, and transforming into a mysterious, unreachable hermit. Let me be brutally clear with you right now. Running away from the world is not power. That is retreat. That is emotional cowardice masquerading as detachment. True Machiavellian sovereignty does not require you to remove your pieces from the chessboard. It requires you to stay right in the center of the game while making your emotional availability completely untouchable. There is a massive, lethal psychological gulf between total disappearance and strategic withdrawal. When you ghost someone forever, you remove yourself from their reality. You become an exit. Over time, their brain processes the closure, the wound heals, and they adjust to your permanent absence. They forget you. But strategic withdrawal? That is an entirely different caliber of psychological warfare. You do not leave their orbit. You simply become completely unpredictable within it. Sometimes you are radiating warmth, charisma, and absolute focus. Sometimes you step back into the shadows, cool, distant, and completely unreachable. You are physically present, yet emotionally unreadable. You give them just enough of your light to keep them craving the sun, but you never allow them to get comfortable in your warmth. You make them feel the chilling weight of your absence even when you are standing directly across the table from them. Why does this dynamic yield such absolute control over human behavior? Because Machiavelli observed an immutable economic law of human nature. Men are wired to despise abundance and worship scarcity. Anything that is constantly available, no matter how exquisite or valuable it is, eventually becomes taken for granted. Consider the air you breathe every single second. It is essential for your very survival, yet you never consciously appreciate it. You never thank it, and you never assign it high value, because it is abundant, guaranteed, and always waiting for your next inhalation. Now consider a diamond, or a vault of gold, valuable precisely because it is rare, guarded, and difficult to obtain. When you make yourself constantly accessible, when you answer every phone call by the second ring, when you reply to every message within 3 minutes, when you agree to every social invitation without a moment of hesitation, you are treating yourself like air. You are telling the world that your time is cheap and your availability is a guaranteed baseline. You kill the mystery. You suffocate their attraction under the crushing weight of your own predictability. However, when you govern your presence using the psychological engine of intermittent reinforcement, the exact same neurological mechanism that makes gambling intensely addictive, everything shifts. When your warmth, your attention, and your engagement are given unpredictably, the human brain is forced to treat your presence as a high-value reward. When they earn your focus, they experience a massive dopamine spike. When you withdraw that focus, their nervous system is left in a state of anxious craving. They cannot rest because they do not know where they stand. They begin to actively obsess over you, replaying your interactions, analyzing your words, and desperately trying to figure out what they need to do to trigger that dopamine hit of your warmth once again. You have successfully shifted the dynamic. Instead of you chasing their validation, they are now performing for yours. How do you execute this on a daily basis without looking manipulative or petty? You must systematically dismantle every predictable pattern you have ever built with the people around you. Start with your digital communication. Stop being the person who is always waiting by the phone like an obedient servant. Let messages sit until you are genuinely ready, calm, and focused enough to engage, whether that takes 3 hours or 3 days. When you finally do respond, do not apologize for the delay. An apology is a subconscious admission that you owed them your immediate time. You owed them nothing. Next, apply this principle to your physical interactions. When you attend a social gathering, a business meeting, or a personal date, practice the ruthless art of the early exit. Never stay until the end of the night, when the energy dies down, people get tired, and the conversation drags into boredom. You must train yourself to stand up and walk out the door at the exact moment the interaction reaches its highest emotional peak, when everyone is laughing, when the connection is warmest, when they want you there the most. Why? Because you freeze your image in their minds at the exact moment of peak value. You leave them hungry for one more minute of your time, rather than full and satisfied. You train them to understand that your presence is a finite, fleeting resource that can be pulled away at any second. This brings us to your core actionable rule for this tactic: the unmapped pattern. From this day forward, never allow anyone to build a reliable predictive algorithm of your behavior. If they think you are always warm and available, shock them with sudden, polite distance. If they think they have figured out your routine, disrupt your schedule and become completely unreachable. When you are with someone, give them your absolute, high-definition presence. Be charming, be intensely observant. Make them feel like the center of the universe. But the very moment you sense they are getting comfortable, the very moment you feel them taking your presence as a baseline guarantee, you step back into the fog. You retract your energy without explanation, without anger, and without warning. You let your absence do the heavy lifting for you. You force them into a loop of self-reflection. What changed? Is he busy? Did I say something wrong? How do I get that warmth back? They will begin to chase you. They will begin to adjust their behavior, their tone, and their level of respect just to earn a single hour of your focus. Because you have transformed yourself from a guaranteed commodity into a high-status prize. You do not need to lock yourself away from society to become untouchable. You simply need to make the world work hard to keep you in it. Stay in the game, but never let the game govern your movements. Show up, but make them earn every single second of your stay. Your boundaries are your power. Your unpredictability is your shield. I want you to anchor this law into your identity right now. Scroll down to the comments and type the affirmation, "My presence is a privilege." Claim your value, become impossible to take for granted, and prepare yourself for the fourth tactical maneuver, where we explore the devastating, mind-breaking neurobiology of total erasure. Number 4. The mind-breaking art of total erasure. In the previous tactic, you learned how to systematically withdraw your presence from the general population to elevate your value and command respect. But what happens when strategic withdrawal is no longer enough? What happens when you encounter individuals so toxic, so maliciously envious, or so relentlessly parasitic that managing your presence around them is a waste of your cognitive currency? You do not play games with them. You do not offer them intermittent warmth. You drop the psychological guillotine. You execute the mind-breaking art of total erasure. To understand why total erasure is the most devastating weapon in Machiavelli's dark psychology arsenal, you must first understand the fundamental neurobiology of human closure. The human brain is an ancient, obsessive pattern recognition machine. It is biologically hardwired to seek cause and effect. We need answers. We need to know why a story ended, why a door closed, or why a relationship shifted. When someone attacks you, betrays you, or tries to pull you into their chaos, their brain is subconsciously expecting an equation. They apply pressure, and you produce a reaction. Even if you fight back, scream at them, or write a 10-page letter explaining how deeply they wronged you, you are giving their brain the psychological closure it craves. You are validating their existence by proving that their actions had a direct, measurable impact on your emotional world. You are confirming that they mattered enough to break your peace. But when you execute total erasure, when you remove them from your reality without a single spoken word, without a final text message, without the slightest hint of an explanation, you deny their brain that biological closure. You force their mind into a catastrophic cognitive short circuit. Without an explanation to process, or an argument to push against, their brain is left spinning in an endless, obsessive loop of unanswered questions. Did they see what I did? Did it hurt them? Why aren't they reacting? Do I mean absolutely nothing to them? That absolute lack of closure becomes an open, festering wound in their psyche. While you are sleeping peacefully, building your future, and operating in complete serenity, they are burning massive amounts of neural energy, obsessing over your silence. You trap them in a psychological torture chamber of their own making, where their own imagination becomes their executioner. Most people lack the emotional discipline for this level of cold, calculated detachment. When they are betrayed or disrespected, their ego screams for blood. They want to stage a public trial. They want to expose the liar, unmask the traitor, and force everyone to see the truth. They spend weeks compiling evidence, sending angry voice notes, and orchestrating dramatic confrontations. But look at what that actually accomplishes. By declaring war on an enemy, you are elevating them to your level. You are announcing to the entire world that this person is significant enough to disrupt your focus, derail your ambitions, and consume your precious time. Machiavelli looked upon this reactive theatricality with utter contempt. He understood that engaging in a public mudslinging contest with a pig only leaves you covered in filth, while the pig enjoys every single second of the attention. Therefore, you must learn to be ruthless in your categorization of human beings. There are 3 distinct archetypes of people who forfeit their right to exist in your universe, and each one must be systematically eradicated through total erasure. Let us examine the first archetype, the saboteurs. These are not mere competitors who play fairly by the rules. These are the active enemies who smile to your face, shake your hand, and quietly plant daggers in your back when you turn around. They spread whispered lies to damage your reputation. They quietly sabotage your professional projects. They secretly pray for your downfall because your light exposes their mediocrity. When you discover a saboteur, your instinct will be to confront them, to scream in their face, and demand to know how they could be so disloyal. Do not speak. Do not confront them. Do not give them the satisfaction of knowing their betrayal wounded you. You simply revoke their access to your life instantly and permanently. You sever every connection, you remove their name from your vocabulary, and you let your escalating, undeniable success serve as their permanent psychological torture. Let them watch from the outer darkness as you rise to heights they can never touch. The second archetype is the chronic critics. These are the miserable souls who build nothing, create nothing, and contribute nothing of value to the world. Their entire identity is built upon sitting safely in the cheap seats of life, throwing stones at the men and women who are actually in the arena getting their hands dirty. They feed on your defensiveness. The moment you reply to a critic, the moment you attempt to explain your vision or justify your hard work to someone determined to misunderstand you, you inject vital oxygen into their pathetic existence. You validate their criticism by treating it as worthy of a defense. Strip them of that oxygen. Treat their words like the meaningless chirping of insects outside your window. Look right past them, step over their criticism, and erase them from your cognitive radar completely. A lion never loses sleep over the opinions of sheep, and a true sovereign never pauses his march to argue with a heckler in the dirt. The third and most dangerous archetype is the energy vampires. These individuals are lethal precisely because they do not wear the face of an enemy. They wear the mask of a friend, a partner, or a family member. They are the chronic victims of their own terrible choices. They exist in a perpetual, never-ending crisis, and they use your empathy, your loyalty, and your kindness as an emotional dumping ground. They call you at all hours to vent. They demand your advice. They consume hours of your emotional bandwidth, yet they never take a single step to fix their lives. Why? Because they do not want solutions. They want attention. They want an enabler who will carry the weight of their miserable existence, so they never have to take responsibility for it themselves. And the moment you try to set a healthy boundary, they will deploy guilt, manipulation, and tears to make you feel like a cold, selfish monster for trying to protect your own sanity. Hear me clearly right now. Cutting off an energy vampire is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. You cannot pour water from an empty cup, and you can never build an exceptional life if you allow emotional parasites to continuously bleed your nervous system dry. How do you execute the mind-breaking art of total erasure against these three archetypes? You implement the silent execution protocol. Starting today, when someone proves themselves to be a saboteur, a chronic critic, or an energy vampire, you do not issue a warning shot. You do not send a dramatic paragraph explaining why you are walking away. You do not announce your departure. An explanation is an emotional offering. It gives them a hook to argue, a justification to debate, or a stage to play the victim. You give them nothing. You delete their contact. You restrict their digital access. If you are forced to share physical space with them in a workplace or a social gathering, you treat them with the terrifying, polite indifference you would offer a piece of furniture. You do not avoid eye contact out of fear. You look right through them as if they are made of glass. If they speak to you, you give a short, flat, emotionless acknowledgement, and you immediately redirect your focus elsewhere. You completely erase their ability to affect your emotional heartbeat. By denying them closure, by denying them conflict, and by denying them your reaction, you sentence them to the ultimate psychological punishment: absolute irrelevance. You strip away their power and reclaim total sovereignty over your world. I want you to anchor this ruthless boundary into your mind right now. Scroll down to the comments and type the affirmation, "I erase what drains me." Commit to the silent execution protocol. Purify your circle without remorse, and prepare yourself for the fifth tactical maneuver, where we learn how to forge an impenetrable emotional armor that renders you completely immune to manipulation. Number 5. Forging the armor of indifference. You have purged the parasites, silenced the critics, and erased the saboteurs from your reality. You have cleared the battlefield of those who actively seek to drag you down. But removing toxic individuals from your environment is only the external half of your mastery. What happens when the attack comes from someone you cannot simply block, delete, or ignore? What happens when you must step into a high-stakes boardroom, negotiate with a manipulative adversary, or face an unavoidable rival who knows exactly how to push your buttons? To remain completely untouchable in every possible scenario, you must build an internal fortress. You must forge what Machiavelli recognized as the supreme shield of the elite, the armor of indifference. Let us immediately destroy the greatest misconceptions surrounding this concept. When the average person hears the word indifference, they picture a cold, numb, unfeeling sociopath who genuinely cares about nothing and no one. That is not power. That is emotional death. True psychological indifference is not the absence of emotion. It is the absolute, unshakable mastery over which emotions you allow to be triggered by outside forces. It is a profound, unshakable internal security, where external praise, external insults, and external chaos carry the exact same weight in your nervous system. 0. When you wear the armor of indifference, you still care deeply about your vision, your standard of excellence, your inner circle, and your purpose. But you become completely bulletproof immune to the petty noise, the subtle disrespect, and the emotional bait dangled by the world around you. Why do manipulators, rivals, and toxic individuals hold power over ordinary people? How do they effortlessly control them like marionettes on strings? They do it by exploiting a universal human weakness: emotional triggers. Every human being carries hidden wounds, insecurities, and unhealed pride. We all have secret buttons wired directly to our nervous system. For some, it is the desperate need to be liked. For others, it is the terror of being misunderstood, the fragile need to always be proven right, or a hypersensitivity to any perceived disrespect. A skilled psychological manipulator operates like a predator hunting in the dark. They study your speech, they watch your reactions, and they test your defenses until they find exactly where your emotional buttons are buried. Once they discover what makes you angry, defensive, or desperate for validation, they own you. Anytime they want to ruin your focus, derail your day, or force you into a reckless mistake, all they have to do is reach out and press that button. When you react with anger, defensiveness, or emotional panic, you are proving to them that their control over your mind is absolute. You are dancing to a tune they composed. Machiavelli studied the rise and fall of princes, kings, and generals, and he noted a tragic, recurring pattern. Countless brilliant, physically powerful men were utterly destroyed, not by armies, not by weapons, but by their own emotional glass jaws. Their pride made them easily provoked. Their vanity made them easily flattered. Their anger made them completely predictable. Their enemies did not need to overpower them on the battlefield. They simply insulted their honor, baited their ego, and watched as these great men lost their emotional control, made fatal strategic blunders, and engineered their own destruction. The few who survived, the few who ruled with absolute sovereignty, were the ones who systematically dismantled their own triggers. They subjected themselves to brutal internal scrutiny, identified every crack in their psychological armor, and sealed those cracks with cold, calculated indifference. They became untouchable because there was nothing left for their enemies to grab onto. When an adversary threw a spear of disrespect at them, the spear did not pierce their skin. It bent and shattered against an impenetrable shield of self-containment. How do you forge this indestructible armor for yourself? You must begin with the practice of radical self-auditing. You cannot defend a wall if you do not know where the breaches are. Tonight, when you are alone in silence, I want you to look back at the last year of your life and brutally analyze your moments of emotional failure. When was the last time you lost your temper? When was the last time you spent hours agonizing over a comment, a slight, or an unfair judgment? When was the last time you felt an overwhelming urge to furiously explain your intentions to someone? Look at those moments not with shame, but with the cold, analytical eye of a military scientist. What specific stimulus triggered your reaction? Was it someone challenging your intelligence? Was it someone dismissing your hard work? Was it feeling excluded, disrespected, or patronized? Those exact triggers are the cracks in your armor. They are the open wounds that the world is using to siphon away your power. Once you have mapped your weak points, you must deploy the neutralization protocol known as the next day rule. When a manipulator strikes at one of your identified triggers, when someone delivers a calculated insult in a meeting, or attempts to humiliate you in front of your peers, your sympathetic nervous system will immediately flood your brain with adrenaline. Your heart rate will spike, your jaw will clench, and your ancient survival instincts will scream at you to strike back instantly. This is the exact microsecond where ordinary men fail and sovereigns transcend. In that precise moment of impact, you must enact an ironclad mental override. You mandate a mandatory 24-hour internal delay before allowing yourself to form an external reaction. You tell your primitive brain, I acknowledge the strike, but we do not respond today. Instead of reacting, you consciously slow your breathing. You relax the muscles in your jaw. You look at the person who tried to provoke you with calm, unblinking, analytical curiosity. You observe them not as a threat, but as an interesting biological specimen, attempting to perform a basic psychological trick. By denying them your immediate emotional explosion, you completely neutralize their attack in real time. When you force yourself to sleep on the provocation and re-examine it 24 hours later, something miraculous happens. The adrenaline evaporates. The emotional fog clears. You look back at the insult with your rational, logical mind, and you realize how desperately pathetic the attempt actually was. You realize that their disrespect says everything about their insecurity and absolutely nothing about your value. You realize that responding to them would be a profound downgrade of your status. The trigger is disarmed. The button is disconnected. The needle has bent against solid steel. When you walk through the world wearing the armor of indifference, your entire presence undergoes a seismic transformation. People can instinctively feel when an individual is emotionally unshakable. When manipulators test your boundaries and realize they cannot make you angry, they cannot make you defensive, and they cannot make you scramble for their approval, they experience a chilling realization. They have no power here. They will either quietly retreat in fear of your discipline, or they will bow in genuine respect to your sovereignty. You become the master of every room you enter because you are the absolute master of the mind you inhabit. I want you to lock this shield into your nervous system right now. Scroll down to the comments and type the affirmation, "Nothing breaks my peace." Claim your emotional invulnerability. Seal every crack in your armor, and prepare yourself for the sixth tactical maneuver, where we unlock the ultimate paradox of Machiavellian dominance, ascending to the heights of power by choosing to do absolutely nothing at all. Number 6. Sovereign inaction. The art of winning by sitting still. You have armored your nervous system against manipulation. You have rendered your emotional state entirely unshakable, and you have stripped the outside world of its ability to provoke you into a reaction. Now, we advance from impenetrable defense to absolute, effortless conquest. We arrive at the ultimate paradox of Machiavellian dominance, mastering the art of defeating your adversaries, dismantling your rivals, and elevating your status by choosing to do absolutely nothing at all. We live in a culture that idolizes the endless, frantic struggle. You are constantly bombarded by the gospel of the hustle, the obsession with grinding, and the exhausting belief that you must aggressively fight for every single inch of your territory. Society conditions you to believe that when an enemy challenges you, you must meet them force for force on the battlefield. You are told that when a rival tries to outpace you, you must run twice as fast just to prove your dominance. You are programmed to view inaction as laziness, hesitation as weakness, and sitting still as a fatal surrender of your competitive edge. This is the mindset of the foot soldier. It is a trap designed to keep you exhausted, reactive, and perpetually burning through your vital cognitive currency in petty, unrewarding skirmishes. The true kings, the elite sovereigns who sit at the pinnacle of power, do not descend into the mud to brawl with every challenger who rattles a sword at their castle walls. They understand a profound hidden law of strategic warfare. Many battles are won not by engaging the enemy, but by stepping out of their way and allowing their own toxic momentum to destroy them. Machiavelli observed that foolish, envious, and aggressive individuals are inherently unstable. Their entire identity is constructed on chaos, conflict, and opposition. They desperately need you to push back against them because your resistance is the very structure that holds them upright. When you fight them, you give them balance. You give them a target to anchor their frantic energy against. But when you practice sovereign inaction, when you completely remove your resistance and refuse to enter the arena, you pull the rug out from underneath their entire psychological architecture. You step aside, and you watch with cold, detached serenity as they stumble forward, overextend themselves, and plummet over the cliff of their own arrogance. Let us examine how this principle governs the most common battlefield in modern life: the assassination of character through rumors and smear campaigns. Eventually, as you rise in power and competence, you will attract the venom of envious people who cannot match your results. They will begin to whisper behind your back. They will twist your words, invent false narratives, and attempt to turn your peers, co-workers, or social circle against you. When this happens, the average person experiences a spike of sheer panic. Their ego screams for immediate justice. They sprint from person to person, issuing furious denials, showing receipts, and desperately trying to put out the fires of gossip. They write lengthy public statements defending their honor. And what is the actual result of all that frantic effort? They look desperate. They look guilty. They look like a weak, sweating suspect in an interrogation room. By scrambling to defend themselves, they validate the rumor by treating it as a legitimate threat to their standing. The master of sovereign inaction treats a smear campaign with chilling, aristocratic indifference. When the rumors reach your ears, you do not flinch. You do not issue a single denial. You do not pull people aside to explain your side of the story. You do nothing. You sit still in your truth, and you continue to execute your work at the absolute highest level of excellence. Understand what this calculated silence does to the dynamics of the room. When people hear a vicious rumor about you, they naturally watch you closely to see how you will react. When they see you operating with absolute serenity, producing undeniable results, and treating the gossip with the contemptuous disregard of a king ignoring the barking of dogs, an immediate psychological shift occurs. Your unshakable posture makes the rumor look absurd. The people who matter, the high-status individuals whose respect actually carries weight, will look at your spotless character. They will look at your tangible achievements, and they will realize that the liar spinning the gossip is a pathetic, envious fraud. You do not need to fight the liar. Your silence, paired with your relentless real-world excellence, will quietly expose them. isolate them, and destroy their credibility without you ever having to dirty your hands. This same lethal efficiency applies to the realm of professional and personal competition. Consider the jealous rival who attempts to initiate a petty competition with you. They copy your style, they try to mirror your projects, they loudly brag about their minor victories, and they constantly try to bait you into a race for status or recognition. If you acknowledge their challenge, if you speed up, change your tactics, or try to outshine them in a public spectacle, you have already lost. Why? Because by racing them, you have publicly elevated them to the status of your equal. You have admitted that they are a legitimate threat to your position. When you deploy sovereign inaction against a petty rival, you simply refuse to acknowledge that a race is even occurring. You treat their desperate attempts to compete with you as completely invisible. You do not look over your shoulder at what they are doing. You do not alter your strategy to block their moves. You keep your eyes locked exclusively on your own horizon, playing a one-player game of exponential self-elevation. This drives the envious rival into a state of absolute psychological madness. They are burning massive amounts of energy trying to catch your attention, trying to measure themselves against you, and trying to provoke a reaction. Because you give them zero feedback, they lose their strategic compass. They start making reckless mistakes. They overreach, they exhaust their resources, and they eventually burn out in a desperate attempt to force a rivalry with an opponent who refuses to even look in their direction. While they are collapsing from the exhaustion of their own insecure ego, you are miles ahead, moving with effortless grace, having conserved 100% of your energy for what truly matters: your personal mastery. This is the secret weapon of the untouchable. You do not need to conquer every enemy through confrontation. You do not need to win every room through loudness and force. You allow time, truth, and the enemy's own toxic gravity to do the heavy lifting for you. You become a black hole of peaceful indifference that absorbs their attacks and yields absolutely nothing in return. To embed this principle into your daily operational framework, you must adopt the law of conscious non-participation. From this moment forward, whenever you are baited into a petty workplace rivalry, a social circle drama, a battle of egos, or a public defense of your reputation, you will deliberately withhold your participation. You will pause, look at the chaotic storm brewing before you, and consciously choose to sit still. You will take the massive reservoir of cognitive energy, emotional focus, and physical time that you would have wasted arguing, defending, and fighting, and you will redirect 100% of it into building your own undeniable dominance. Let them gossip, let them compete, let them fight their imaginary wars. You will speak through your achievements. You will conquer through your serenity. You will ascend while they destroy themselves in the dirt below you. I want you to anchor this supreme strategic law into your identity right now. Scroll down to the comments and declare your mastery over the battlefield by typing the affirmation, "I win without fighting." Claim your sovereign peace, release the need to force outcomes, and prepare yourself for the 8th and final section, where we synthesize these 7 laws into one absolute, unbreakable mandate for total interpersonal control. Number 7. The Absolute Control Mandate. We have arrived at the pinnacle of Machiavellian psychology, the final, overarching law that binds every weapon in your new arsenal together. Over the last 20 minutes, you have undergone a complete tactical dismantling of the ordinary mind. You have learned to guard your cognitive attention like a vault of gold. You have made strategic silence your sharpest, most confrontational weapon. You have mastered the intoxicating rhythm of calculated unpredictability, deployed the mind-breaking neurobiology of total erasure against your parasites, forged an impenetrable internal armor against your deepest emotional triggers, and discovered the supreme elegance of ascending through sovereign inaction. But all of these individual principles, no matter how lethal they are on their own, converge into one singular, non-negotiable directive. The 7th and final tactic that must govern every breath you take from this day until your last. Always control. What does it actually mean to always be in control? The weak, unevolved man believes that control is external. He thinks control means forcing other people to obey his will, dictating how others perceive him, and aggressively micromanaging every variable in his environment. That is not control. That is the exhausting, desperate anxiety of a tyrant built on sand. The true Machiavellian sovereign understands a liberating, unbreakable reality. You will never control the chaos of the external world, but you hold absolute, godlike authority over the gate to your internal kingdom. You do not control what a